Hello, my lovelies. Welcome to the Geek Suite. I'm your host, the Kidner Bean, and today we're going to be starting our new series, Dungeons & Dragons and Ice and Fire, where we compare Game of Thrones characters against their book counterparts using Dungeons & Dragons character sheets. And for all of our new viewers, we want to say hello, welcome, be sure to hit like and subscribe, ring that notification bell, and be sure to follow us on Instagram and Twitter so you don't miss out on any of our content. Now, this isn't going to be one of those videos where we compare physical appearances or things that they cut out from book and show. Everybody's already done that. And that's why we're using the Dungeons & Dragons character sheets. We're incorporating a time-honored geek tradition, Dungeons & Dragons, to find a fun, quantitative way to see the differences in the way that these characters are portrayed, both on page and on screen. So obviously this is going to be an all-encompassing spoiler warning for both all seasons of the show and all books that have been released, including but not limited to some of the pre-release chapters for The Winds of Winter. The first of these Game of Thrones / A Song of Ice and Fire characters that we're going to examine through the lens of D&D is the face of the show, #SoSaithTwitter, Daenerys Targaryen. And since I saw seasons 1 through 6 of the show before I began reading the books, we're going to start with HBO's incarnation of Dany, and then look at George R. R. Martin's portrayal. Now, when examining anyone's HBO character, especially Dany's, I'm going to try to focus on who she was for seasons 1 through 6, considering how off the rails the last two seasons went. When looking at her race for the Dungeons & Dragons character sheet, we see that in the show, Daenerys is human. And, while the DVD's extra features comment about the magic of old Valyria and Valyrian blood, and hint that they might be more than human, or at least that the Valyrian people think of themselves this way, there is no evidence to the contrary throughout the series. And importantly, in both Westeros and Dungeons & Dragons, there are mixed races and magical bloodlines that run the gamut of race within these respective realms. For her class, we're going to classify her as a paladin, and one could even argue vengeance paladin, who leans further and further into a fascism pitfall come seasons 7 and 8. Looking at the description of a paladin in Dungeons & Dragons, we see the following quote: "The paladin is a holy knight, crusading in the name of good and order, and is a divine spellcaster." Now, there is some debate about her spellcasting and magic abilities on the show, and for more information on that, check out this video on Dany surviving the birth of her dragons in the link down below. Looking at Daenerys and her character arc from seasons 1 through 5, she becomes obsessed with ending the mistreatment of others. First and foremost, with herself. This includes things like standing up to her brother, making Drogo treat her as an equal, and then going on to demanding the humane treatment for Mirri Maz Duur and the other Lamb women, and that she finds the Dothraki rape of victims distasteful. She then escalates throughout the course of the story to abolishing slavery, after buying the Unsullied in Astapor. She then goes on a rather lengthy side quest to smash the global slave trade before going home to claim her throne. As the seasons progress, she becomes more and more rigid about her ideals, particularly regarding slavery. She crucifies the Mastas, forces the Ironborn and Dothraki to give up slavery, which is a key part of both of their cultural identities, even though it is a negative one, and eventually goes to the extreme after reclaiming Westeros, as evident in her final speech.
Koi koi! Shapka regis anhan, regis sandali. Shapka adrevish dozge anima hoge garon shiketi mori. Shapka adrevish o kuenegin mori. Shapka regis anhan, regis andali. Torgonudo. Hinrange mis hosno en noma di grupa. Nediro mentiro hetricas abarge carajeixa. Avitolvio agnuro gento si brosan. Dario Valerio Valeriat. Dovogeris. Jeme henioti nohoti nasintas. Seas postaruti hybridas. Sir. Daremi rosse istat. In va batolvio viho beoldi darende. In veli basma tetostaor. In va batolvio viho non tiraderat. Tolvrio pregelat. En winter velva dornot. En laniso valeniot. En gyro geerot. Avar. Valar. Rinjar. Tole grego vobotis. Grevi in noma pregelat.
All of this rigidity with regards to her principles is all in line with the paladin class description, especially Dany's strictness with regards to her principles. We see this description for paladins. Compared to the other classes, the paladin has one of the most restrictive codes of conduct in their single-mindedness and utter devotion to good. While Dany's concept of a devotion to good becomes warped, it still fits within the characteristics of the paladin class. Daenerys is Azor Ahai, a holy warrior for justice and all that is right. Unlike most Dungeons & Dragons paladins, her religion or deity is herself.
I was born at Dragonstone. Not that I can remember it. We fled before Robert's assassins could find us. Robert was your father's best friend, no? I wonder if your father knew his best friend sent assassins to murder a baby girl in her crib. Not that it matters now, of course. I spent my life in foreign lands. So many men have tried to kill me. I don't remember all their names. I have been sold like a brood mare. I've been shamed and betrayed, raped and defiled. Do you know what kept me standing through all those years in exile? Faith. Not in any gods. Not in myths and legends. In myself. In Daenerys Targaryen.
For her background, this one is kind of obvious. She was born and raised and treated, for the most part, as a princess of Westeros. Albeit an exiled one, but a princess nonetheless. She goes from being a princess, to a Khaleesi, to a queen, and finally a conqueror. I can't really think of a better background from Dungeons & Dragons to give her than the noble. But then again, I'm fairly new to D&D, so I would love to hear from you and your comments and suggestions in the comment section down below if you can think of something better. As far as her alignment goes, most online sources agree that Daenerys is chaotic good, and I'm inclined to agree, at least for her book interpretation. In the HBO series, she veers more towards lawful neutral, and this becomes more prevalent as her character arc progresses. Let's look at a description of the positives and negatives for choosing an alignment of lawful neutral and see how this lines up with our portrayal of Daenerys. Lawful neutral is the best alignment you can be because it means you are reliable and honorable without being a zealot. However, lawful neutral can be a dangerous alignment when it seeks to eliminate all freedom, choice, and diversity in society. Now, Dany herself is not a zealot, but her actions create them. The Red Priest becomes convinced she is Azor Ahai reborn, In Slaver's Bay, the freed slaves worship Dany, and her actions, through this dangerous slide into eliminating choice, create the Sons of the Harpy. In later seasons of the show, we see her slip into this more dangerous version of lawful neutral, seeking to carve the world in her own image, eliminating freedom, choice, and diversity as her goals. We already see parts of this behavior unfold with the Dothraki and the Ironborn. She recruits them to her cause, and in doing so she forces both groups to stop raiding and slaving, which is at the core of both of their cultural identities. I mean, she's right, those things are bad and should be stopped. But I'm just listing this as an example of things to come for her in the show. I thought Benioff and Weiss had given this any thought, creating Dany as a lawful neutral paladin would actually be a really great choice considering how her decisions progress throughout the show. At first, her notable actions are things done out of righteousness or self-preservation, but become more and more extreme and increasingly harder to justify to the extremity of her actions. It starts with mild things like freeing Mirri Maz-Dur. She then turns to things like burning the warlocks of Qarth, to the slave masters of Astapor and Meereen, and yes, Yunkai, but she wasn't present for the slaughter. So we're going to go ahead and give that one a pass. She let the Tarleys opt to die by dragonfire. She frees slaves, but as Tyrion points out, her actions become more and more extreme to achieve this.
When she murdered the slavers of Astapor, I'm sure no one but the slavers complained. After all, they were evil men. When she crucified hundreds of Myronese nobles, who could argue they were evil men? The Dothraki cows she burned alive, they would have done worse to her. Everywhere she goes, evil men die, and we cheer her for it. And she grows more powerful and more sure that she is good and right. She believes her destiny is to build a better world for everyone. If you believed that, if you truly believed it, wouldn't you kill whoever stood between you and paradise?
Like he says, everywhere she goes, good men die. Now, looking at the information we've got so far, as a human paladin who is lawful neutral and has a noble background, we're going to select the following skills for her. History, as a noble and with ties to Old Valyria, this is very important for her character development. Intimidation. Again, this one seems obvious. She loves to threaten people with her dragons. Insight, as she does occasionally think outside the box on the course of the show. And persuasion. She does sometimes use her beauty and charm instead of her dragons to get stuff. Okay, and now that we've gotten the basics like race, class, alignment, and such out of the way, let's see how her character skills break down. Now, we're going to be sort of blending D&D metrics to see where these various skills and abilities level out for HBO's Daenerys Targaryen. Now, normally in Dungeons & Dragons character setup, you get an average for any given ability, and it's usually about a 10, with 14 to 16 being on the high end, and 18 and plus being reserved for supernaturally powerful beings. In Game of Thrones, these would be people like the Night King, the Zombie Mountain, the Dragons, and Bran. And Arya, aka Wolverine, if Benioff and Weiss had their way. Now, Dany in the show does have some fire resistance, but not in a way that puts her over the top as one of these super-powered beings like her dragons would be. She, Melisandre, Beric, and Thoros are all just below the barrier on this with their abilities. Alright, so now that we've reviewed how these abilities are being utilized for our Game of Thrones character sheet, let's see how Dany pans out. For her strength, we're going to put that at like an 8. We don't see any evidence that she's physically weak or any weaker than the average person, but she is petite and was trained to be a trophy wife, not trained in combat. So we're going to take her build into account and put her in at an 8, a little below average for a human, which is what we would expect for someone of her background. Moving on to the next category, we have dexterity. Now, Dany isn't clumsy, but she's no acrobatic ninja like Wolverine. She's average, so we're going to leave her at a 10 for dexterity. Moving on to constitution, she is going to be above average here, and this is largely due to her heat resistance. We see this throughout the series. She likes taking scalding hot baths, can hold the dragon eggs without being burned, and has a habit of walking through blazing infernos like it's nothing. However, magical blood boosts aside, we do see that she handles a remarkable amount of physical abuse throughout the series. Her assaults from her brother, from Khal Drogo, from riding all day, and then later when she is recaptured by the Dothraki and is forced to walk back to Vaes Dothrak, while being whipped. We see that she recovers from these events rather quickly. We see in Season 1 that she has to be carried off her horse to her tent because she is in so much pain she is stiff and can't move. But just a little while later, she's smiling and chit-chatting with her handmaids like it's just another day at the spa, with some riding blisters. In the scenes where we see her walking with the Khalasar and her presentation to the new Khal, she seems more annoyed rather than hurt or tired. And while Drogon flew her pretty far into the Dothraki Sea, it's still a considerable distance from Drogon's Perch, Dragonstone Hill as it's called in the books, to Vaes Dothrak. If she's being forced to walk that whole way, she should at least be exhausted and weak and ragged. But she's not. So, for that, we're going to give her a 14. She's obviously more durable than the average bear. Oh. Okay, well now that I've made myself sad, let's move on to intelligence and wisdom. We see as her arc progresses that she grows and learns from her advisors. She's not a master schemer like Tyrion or Tywin or even Littlefinger. But she's not like, let's say, Sansa.
Please. I'm a slow learner. It's true. But I learn.
She's maybe above average and smart enough to listen to her advisors, but also has the occasional out-of-the-box idea.
Now you have given the masters what they deserve. If I give everyone what they deserve, I'll have no one left to rule. Sir Barristan counselled mercy when I took this city right up to the morning he died. Darien Harris thinks I should kill the former masters and let the rest of the city fend for itself. What do you think? Your Grace, I think that I'm not fit to have an opinion on these matters. You are as fit as anyone I know. You know why I'm here. And you know who will suffer the most if this all falls apart. So, what do you think? I can only tell you what I have seen, Your Grace. I have seen you listen to your counselors. I have seen you lean on their experience when your own was lacking, and weigh the choices they put before you. And I have seen you ignore your counselors, because there was a better choice, one that only you could see.
So, let's give HBO's Dany an 11. Talking about listening to her advisors, let's move on to wisdom. She's wise enough to know that she doesn't know everything, at least up until the end, and is wise enough to have advisors who have more experience and skill than she does. Now, in the end, she ends up losing all of her advisors, either by ignoring them, casualties of war, or execution. Some of these losses are her own bad decisions, but, like I said, we're not giving the last two seasons too much weight. I'd say that she's pretty average, so we'll give her a 10. With an asterisk, because we're not going to ignore season 7 and 8 completely. Okay, we're now down to our last section, charisma. And Dany oozes charisma. Or at least the showrunners want us to think that. People fall in love with Dany, unless they're from the north. And this goes in line with her being a paladin. For those less familiar with D&D, the game, not the show writers, each class has a specific ability scores that their class specializes in. Rogues have dexterity, wizards have intelligence, and paladins have charisma. The paladin is usually easy to spot because there's something that draws people towards them. Sometimes they're born special, like She-Ra, and sometimes it's their ass that reels in the followers.
Better hustle, Cap. Things look like they're just about wrapped up here.
Got it. I'm approaching the elevator now.
If it's all the same to you, I'll have that drink now.
All right, get him on his feet. And I'll stand around posing up a storm later. By the way, feel free to clean up.
Ugh, Mr. Rogers, I almost forgot that suit did nothing for your ass.
No one asked you to look, Tony.
It's ridiculous.
I think you look great, Cap. As far as I'm concerned, that's America's ass.
That is America's ass.
For Danny, it's a little bit of both. Looking at the way Danny's charisma comes through on screen, let's go ahead and look at some examples of how we see these people fall in love with her. In Season 1, she marries Khal Drogo and instantly adopts the Dothraki lifestyle. And, after the horse heart scene, her brother realizes that these people love her in a way that he's never going to get. Mostly because he's a whiny dick. But, we see the same respect from the Unsullied for Daenerys after she frees them and asks them to follow her willingly.
Dov'è Gavis? Jemut live sorry. Keso tubi. Jemut taivri depan. Hendo jagun Charles a lui vali miri. Hendo jagun Kostas. Un dari vali Sirio trikilsa. Jemut kiven jui depan. Unei siti veli bilat. Un dari valati.
When she frees Yunkai, the people surround her and praise her and lift her up.
Misa!
Misa!
What does it mean? It is old Kiskadi, Khaleesi. It means mother. It's all right. These people won't hurt me. Sovetis. Junet Rebagon.
Her charm and beauty literally save her life during the standoff with Yunkai, when Daario Naharis is sent to kill her. but he falls in love with her instead. Jorah is so enamored with her, even though he has a Valyrian fetish, and that's mostly where this all started from. He keeps coming back to her from all manner of death and desertion. The power of Daenerys cures grayscale. The people of Meereen are divided on her, but those who do love her are diehards. She, in one queer-baiting conversation with Yara Greyjoy, a hardened Ironborn raider, convinces her to have all of her people give up their millennia-long profession of raiding. She gets Jon Snow to fall in love with her, I guess. I mean, that's what D&D tell us, but I didn't see it. If you guys saw it, great. If not, let me know in the comment section down below. Tyrion falls in love with her. The Sand Snakes and Olenna Tyrell, they mostly join out of convenience, but they do appear to at least like her. Hell, up until the very end, Varys spends most of Season 6 and Season 7 singing her praises to Tyrion and anyone who will listen.
You never told me why you set me free.
Your brother asked me to.
Would have said no.
Refuse the Kingslayer, a dangerous proposition.
Not as dangerous as releasing me. You risked your life, your position, everything. Why? You're not family. You owe me nothing.
I didn't do it for you. I did it for the Seven Kingdoms.
Drunken dwarf will never be the savior of the Seven Kingdoms.
I don't believe in saviors. I believe men of talent have a part to play in the war to come.
Going to have to find another soldier. Done with Westeros, and Westeros is done with me.
You have many admirable qualities. Self-pity is not one of them. Any fool with a bit of luck can find himself born into power. But earning it for yourself, that takes work.
Not well suited for work.
I think you are. You have your father's instincts for politics, and you have compassion.
Compassion, yes. I killed my lover with my bare hands. I shot my own father with a crossbow.
I never said you were perfect.
What is it you want, exactly?
Peace. Prosperity. A land where the powerful do not prey on the powerless.
Where the castles are made of gingerbread and the moats are filled with blackberry wine. The powerful have always preyed on the powerless. That's how they became powerful in the first place.
Perhaps. And perhaps we've grown so used to horror, we assume there's no other way. If you sat on the Iron Throne, would you spread misery throughout the land?
I will never sit on the Iron Throne.
No, you won't. But you could help another climb those steps and take that seat. The Seven Kingdoms need someone stronger than Tommen, but gentler than Stannis. A monarch who can intimidate the High Lords and inspire the people. A ruler loved by millions with a powerful army and the right family name.
Good luck finding him.
Who said anything about him? You have a choice, my friend. You can stay here at Illyrio's palace and drink yourself to death. Or you can ride with me to Meereen, meet Daenerys Targaryen, and decide if the world is worth fighting for.
Can I drink myself to death on the road to Meereen?
This charisma, as it appeared in the show, more often than not broke the rule of writing that says, show, don't tell. We often hear a lot about how people love Dany through lines that are said on the show rather than seeing these acts themselves. But as a girl who started the show with nothing, becoming the Queen of Meereen with 3 dragons, a massive army, and wealth, that definitely takes some chutzpah. And as a true Targaryen, we're going to give her a charisma rating of 15. Now, looking at things like armor, class, and initiative, they're not particularly important per se, at least for Dany, but we're going to fill them in anyway. As a human with no armor, her armor class is 10, which is average. Same for initiative, which is 0. And since on the show everyone is crossing continents in a matter of hours by the end, she gets infinity for speed. Now, for the rest of this character sheet, we're really only going to stick to boxes that are most relevant for character comparison. So, for instance, we're going to fill in the other proficiencies and languages box with things for Daenerys, like dragon riding, High Valyrian language, and Dothraki language. Now, the features and traits are specifically for in-game abilities, characters' abilities to do cool things, which is something I want to focus on as we look at Dany's character and some events that pop up throughout the course of the show. So, for example, those who want to adopt Dany as a Vengeance Paladin, the Oath of Vengeance Paladin's channel divinity ability is called Abjure Enemy. As an action, you present your holy symbol and or speak a prayer of denunciation using your channel divinity. You choose one creature within 60 feet that you can see. That creature must then make a wisdom saving throw, unless it is immune to being frightened. Fiends and undead have a disadvantage on this saving throw. On a failed save, the creature is frightened for 1 minute or until it takes any damage. While frightened, the creature's speed is 0 and it can't benefit from any bonus to its speed. On a successful save, this creature's speed is halved for 1 minute or until the creature takes any damage. Reading this description of Abjure Enemy's attack, channel divinity ability, I can't help but think of the 10 million times Dany gives her long-ass list of titles before owning someone on the show. But, in particular, I have to say that the best in-show example of this Abjure Enemy type ability would have to be from the following clip.
Randaski, Mazmacho and Grad. Jirene sit live spon Zoldacho at Hiri.
The Master says they are untested. He says you would be wise to blood them early. There are many small cities between here and there, cities ripe for sacking. Should you take captives, the Masters will buy the healthy ones and for a good price. And who knows? In 10 years, some of the boys who send them may be unsullied in their turn. Us all shall prosper. Is it done then? Do they belong to me?
Pindas lusa sertida.
Satida.
This is done.
Pero si tuami.
You hold the whip.
Espero Zia Zantir.
Dovageris! Naijon mevatas! Geletis!
Vetra, j'espère, divito magis.
Zaldrizes buzdaris kosdaor.
Idraji valire.
Nige Daenerys gel masmo hen Targaryen lentrot. Hen Valeria wepoana garixan. Valeria munio engos nuihis isa. Dova gevis! Axia osentas, menti osentas! Kiloni pilos lue vale tolvio osenetas! Inini odrigatas! Urnei lue dolide prisotas!
Aske! Sesena!
Dracarys.
just the regular paladin route, paladins have a spell that's called Find Steed. Normally, it's for a magical mount from another plane of existence, see Swift Wind in She-Ra, but Dany uses this spell to, quote-unquote, wake dragons from stone. And arguably, again, we see this sort of spell for finding Steed with Drogon in the Great Pit of Meereen, and again in the Dothraki Sea in Season 6, right before she takes the whole Khalasar as her blood riders. We know in the books that she most likely summons Drogon in the pit at Meereen with some sort of magical or psychic connection she has to her dragons. And the showrunners tried to recreate that feeling from the Meereen scene in the Dothraki Sea when she finds him again. But they aren't as explicit about her magical connection, barring bonus features and on-DVD interviews, because if you tell it to us off-screen, it doesn't count. And I'm going to take this opportunity to run a small tangent because we're talking about features, and I do want to bring up her appearance because it does differ from show to books. So while it's not necessarily pertaining to the way D&D describes features and abilities, we are going to talk about her physical features as she appears on the show. On HBO's Game of Thrones, she has white hair and skin that gets sunburned.
Išiš mi tichles. Inavasianni tichles margin zaskas.
Annan droki sheches ligmurua. Arjinjin hanevrin esi. Išiš turge seche niakariza kaso.
Asher dirgi. Negech norithon zaska. Ash shilomanayaton anjaki zaska.
Karshanan hile Kristasov.
We also see on the show that she has blue eyes, as pointed out by Real Housewives of Vaes Dothrak.
Teorisitihi Chandrimaeki. Menennessa. Sirisesna Haremoon. Hatih metamu vehiran.
Asha Sisilek. Hashmetyoriki Misa Niastiki. Sirisesna Haremoon. Jinko Shije Anai.
Alright, let's look at her personality traits and see how these Dungeons & Dragons breakdowns reflect her character. First we have abrasiveness. When you're abrasive, you have trouble being nice in a conversation. You're demanding, and although you can get what you want, you may end up hurting others. It can increase your intimidation stat, but people will find you insufferable, and it can destroy civil discourse.
Host, but there is no servant alive that can bring me what I want.
Oh, she has a talent for drama, this one. So, my little princess, what is it you want?
My birthright, the 7 kingdoms of Westeros.
I fear I'm no better than a servant in this regard. I cannot give you what I do not have.
I'm not asking you for the kingdoms. I'm asking you for ships. I need to cross the narrow sea.
I need my ships as well. I use them, you see, to bring spices from one port to another.
Whatever you grant me now will be repaid 3 times over when I retake the Iron Throne.
Retake? Did you once sit on the Iron Throne?
My father sat there before he was murdered.
But if you did not sit on it yourself, would it not be correct to say, take the Iron Throne?
I didn't come here to argue grammar.
Of course not. You came to take my ships. So let me explain my position, little princess. Unlike you, I do not have exalted ancestors. I make my living by trade, and I judge every trade on its merits. You ask for ships. You say I shall be repaid triple. I do not doubt your honesty or your intentions, but before you repay your debts, you must seize the 7 kingdoms. Do you have an army?
Not yet.
You do not have an army. Do you have powerful allies in Westeros?
There are many there that support my claim.
When were you there last?
I left when I was a baby.
So, in truth, you have no allies.
The people will rise to fight for their rightful queen when I return.
Ah. Forgive me, little princess, but I cannot make an investment based on wishes and dreams. Now, if you'll pardon me...
Do you know Illyrio Monpatis, Magistar of Pentos?
Yes, we've met. A shrewd man.
For my wedding, he gave me 3 petrified dragon eggs. He believed, the world believed, that the ages had turned them to stone. How many centuries had it been since dragons roamed the skies? But I dreamt that if I carried those eggs into a great fire, they would hatch. When I stepped into the fire, my own people thought I was mad. But when the fire burnt out, I was unhurt. The mother of dragons. Do you understand? I'm no ordinary woman. My dreams come true.
I admire your passion. But in business, I trust in logic, not passion. I'm sorry, little princess.
I am not your little princess. I am Daenerys Stormborn of the blood of old Valyria, and I will take what is mine. With fire and blood, I will take it.
Yes, my lady, but not with my ships.
And I mean, yeah, that's Dany. I'd say abrasiveness fits Dany's Blood of the Dragon personality to a T. Next we have distinctive. And a distinctive trait is when someone has a physical trait that sets them apart. They can have big ears, a scar, or another characteristic that sets them apart. As you can imagine, this can be a bit of a disadvantage if your character is trying to hide or disguise themselves. However, it gives your character a bit of reputation. If your character has a limp, for example, they may use it to get sympathy. And for Dany, her Valyrian looks, white hair, blue eyes, etc., give her away instantly. And she uses her Valyrian heritage and her Blood of the Dragon to either cause reverence or to intimidate others as necessary.
The silver hair of a true Targaryen. Zaro Zoan Doxos. She is far too lovely for a glorified dock worker like yourself.
Very true. And yet they say that your grandfather, who sold pepper off the back of a wagon, married a lady far lovelier and higher born than himself.
So after abrasiveness and being distinctive, Dany is also focused on her goals of getting home to the Iron Throne. Someone who's focused can keep their eyes on the prize no matter how many things try to distract them. However, those who are too focused on one thing may ignore something else important that passes them by. She's so focused on it, on getting the Iron Throne, that it takes losing a dragon to really see the threat of the White Walkers as a priority over uprooting Cersei. Her focus on her goals is part of what makes her relentless, which is our next character trait. Someone who is relentless won't give up no matter what. This is great for situations that require persistence, but characters who are relentless may overexhaust themselves, and this can lead to fatigue. And as she veers further and further into madness, she becomes more and more suspicious of those around her.
There's something you need to know.
Someone has betrayed me.
Yes.
Jon Snow.
Daenerys.
He knows the truth about Jon.
He does.
Because you told him. You learned from Sansa. And she learned from Jon, though I begged him not to tell her. As I said, he betrayed me.
Her ideals we're going to keep simple. Her ideals are freedom and justice. She wants to get justice for her family by reclaiming the Iron Throne, and justice for those who were enslaved in Slaver's Bay. She in turn also values freedom, smashing the slave trade that her ancestors helped create. For bonds, these are going to be people she has relations with in the show that would be critical. So for Dany, if we had to choose a person to bond with, foregoing the obvious choice of dragons, I would have to say it's either Ser Jorah or Missandei, as her relationship with these people is critical to her character development and choices she makes throughout her life. For instance, despite repeated banishments, she still loves and values Ser Jorah and is devastated by his loss in Season 8. And it is the death of her closest friend and confidant Missandei that sets her dark and downward spiral. That starts her dark and downward spiral. And her biggest flaw, other than bad writing, is going to be her aggression and descent into madness. And, as we've stated above, her bond with Missandei and her dragons, and the loss of those bonds are what drives her further to madness. Or at least that's what we're supposed to glean from these final episodes. I think. Well, there you have it. Here's what the HBO version of Daenerys Targaryen looks like spelled out on paper. Thanks for sticking around to see how our little queen turned out. Be sure to hit like and subscribe and ring that notification bell, and stay tuned for part 2, where we build a character sheet for Book Dany and see how they compare side by side. That's all the time I have for today. I was hoping to cover each character in a single video, but it looks like this is going to be way too long for that. So, I'll see you all next time when we cover how Book Daenerys measures up on the D&D character sheet. Alrighty, my lovelies, thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Mwah!